everybody. Remember I showed you the other day Tim Hodgson, that's Mark Carney's new energy minister in Berlin, talking about getting energy to Europe, but admitting there's no way that's going to happen at the soonest in 5 years, simply because the Trudeau Liberals killed pipeline and tanker projects. Well, today he's on TV talking about the one pipeline that was built, and that was built at a staggering cost to the public. It was owned by Kinder Morgan, which is a private company, an American company. They wanted to simply expand an existing pipeline, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, just like it sounds. It goes from Alberta over the mountains and into Vancouver. It was built, 75 years ago. So twinning it was the smart move. You didn't have to dig up new land. You didn't have to go over virgin territory or negotiate anew with Indian bands. It was a great idea, but the Trudeau Liberals killed it. And when they were threatened with a huge lawsuit by Kinder Morgan, they agreed to pay out Kinder Morgan by paying an astonishing amount of money to buy the dead pipeline, which then they took years to complete, but it's actually done. About 4 times more expensive than the original private sector version, but it's done. Trouble is, there's barely any oil in it because of regulatory reasons. Well, Tim Hodgson was asked about that today. Here's his answer.
Well, the federal government threw cold water on the suggestion from the CEO of Trans Mountain that Ottawa prioritize optimizing the capacity of the government-owned pipeline before greenlighting new major pipeline projects.
I don't think that's a project of national interest, so I'm not going to jump in front of that. If there's a case to be made for optimization, they will make that case. And we'll consider it through the normal course.
Using the pipeline is up in the air. It's not necessary in the national interest to use it. So they built the pipeline. And there is some oil in it. I won't deny it. But optimizing it, that is filling it up, it's not in the national interest. Could they be more blatant? These people do not want the oil industry. Joining us now to talk about it is someone who has a lot to say about tax dollars being used for government-funded white elephants. It's our friend Franco Terrazzano, the boss of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Franco, am I misunderstanding what's going on here?
Well, I think the government is misunderstanding its own role in society, okay? The government should not be in the business of business, right? The government should not be in the pipeline business. In fact, the problem isn't that there isn't an economic case for more oil and gas development, more resource extraction here in Canada. There is an economic case. The problem is governments getting in the way, governments throwing up roadblocks, and governments chasing away investment in Canada for years. Okay, Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines Law, the discriminatory tanker ban on the West Coast, rejecting the Northern Gateway Pipeline, politicians chasing away the private company when it wanted to spend billions of its own dollars to twin that Trans Mountain Pipeline, Or how about this? The government moving the regulatory goalposts on the Energy East pipeline. Okay, so it's not an economic issue, so to speak. It's not a free market issue, so to speak. It's a government issue where you have these politicians and bureaucrats who want to run around, pretend like they're investment banker with Canadian taxpayers' dollars. Look, the government should get out of the business of business. The government should remove all of these regulatory burdens and let the business community do what it does best, get our Canadian neighbors back to work.
You know, Franco, you're so right. I don't know what the government is doing in the pipeline business. That really smacks of 1980s style national energy program, total disaster. But just a couple days ago, this same energy minister was in Berlin. In fact, for all I know, that's where he was doing the Zoom call from. And he was saying, oh, we're going to sell so much energy to Germany. We're going to get you off that Russian energy because they buy a lot from there. The German press were saying, well, how's that going to work? Because you keep killing pipelines. It was sort of an awkward moment. Here he is with a pipeline that is built by taxpayer money because they screwed up the private sector deal. And he will not fill it. There is a pipeline, but they will not use it. I think that is insane, Franco. And since when is it a political decision if selling oil is in the national interest or not? Do we need the government's political permission to sell anything? what do they get to decide is important work and what's not important work? This really feels like a centrally planned economy, and it's not going well.
Well, hey, it's a good point to bring up the old fact of life. You are not the government and the government is not you, right? Like, look, I don't want these politicians and bureaucrats determining what is in the national interest. I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's kind of ironic to now hear the government talk about selling our natural resources to other countries when you look at the fact that we've lost, hundreds of billions of dollars since 2015 because of stalled and canceled natural resource projects here in Canada. I mean, look, Canada should be the envy of the world. Okay, we have highly talented, highly educated workforce. We have abundant natural resources, diverse natural resources from coast to coast to coast, right? Like, we have every opportunity here in Canada to be the freest, most prosperous country in the world. And what is the problem standing in our way? It's government. It's government bureaucrats. It's politicians who think they know how you should live your life better than you do. Okay, we got to get these government bureaucrats out of the way, and we have to be able to have job creators actually build and develop our natural resources.
Hey, Franco, I saw a tweet that you made today, and I just got to show it to you. I want you to talk about it. It's just incredible. Let me read it, and then you can just tee off from there. New PBO report, that's Parliamentary Budget Officer, right? So the new parliamentary report should be a huge wake-up call, rein in the out-of-control bureaucracy costs. And then I almost couldn't believe this. The federal bureaucracy cost taxpayers $71 billion last year. That's a 77% increase since 2016. But here's the part that actually shocked me. Total compensation per full-time bureaucrat will hit $172,000 by 2029. That is what doctors make. That's more than what a lot of family doctors make. The average full-time bureaucrat in just 4 years will make close to $200,000. How can that be right?
You know, they call themselves public servants, right? But who's really serving who here, right? Who's really serving who? I mean, Ezra, you really summed it up very well there. I mean, number one, the cost of the federal bureaucracy has gone up 77%. Are you getting anywhere close to 77% better services from the federal government since 2016? Unless you're collecting a taxpayer-funded paycheck, the answer to that question is a big fat no. Right? I mean, look, half of Canadians, according to a poll that we commissioned from Leger, say that services have gotten worse since 2016. And you know, this all goes back to the idea of the government rewarding itself for failure with our tax dollars, okay? Ezra, this is what really just turns my stomach upside down. The federal government has rubber-stamped $1.5 billion in bonuses since 2015. Government departments can barely meet half of their own performance targets every year, okay? That's like you write a test, you get a D, and then you give yourself an $18,000 bonus check. But there's some other crazy examples, okay? Arrive Scam, right? That app went from 80 grand to 60 million. Government executives working on Arrive Scam took $340,000 in bonuses. How about the Bank of Canada? One job, keep inflation low and around 2%. Inflation reached a 40-year high. Canadians couldn't afford groceries, and Bank of Canada bureaucrats printed up $20 million in bonus checks.
Jeez, it's unbelievable. And you know, the premise that Mark Carney was a master economist and banker and would rein this in, I don't know. I'm terrified of what's going on. I just can't get over 172 grand. And you know, there's still a lot of federal public servants, and I use that word with an asterisk, who are working from home. You know, the rest of us returned to work years ago. I just 172. Is that the average? Is that what they said? Total compensation per full-time bureaucrat?
That would be total compensation per bureaucrat, right? So essentially the average full-time federal bureaucrat, their total compensation will be about $172,000 by 2029. And remember, that's because salary is the tip of the iceberg when you're talking about a government bureaucrat, right? There's a whole bunch of other perks like bonuses, and then the pension, right? The pension, the platinum taxpayer funded pension that like you really only get nowadays if you're a government bureaucrat or really a politician.
I think that's the single worst piece of news I've seen in a month. I how can the rest of us live? I mean, I'm here in Toronto and I'm doing okay, I suppose, but we have a lot of young people here and they're working hard in this expensive city and it's tough to save up to buy a home and groceries are expensive and they are paying taxes so the government can live large. When you're making 172 a year, the average bureaucrat, you are insulated from the consequences of running a massive debt-ridden taxing government. You just insulate it because they'll just pay their own people to be immune to it, while severely normal people, ordinary people, have to bear the burden. I hate that statistic. I'm deeply troubled by it. And I haven't seen it in headlines. Have you seen that reported widely?
Well, it just came out today, right? This is fresh off the press, so we'll see how much pickup it gets. But Ezra, you know what? It also really makes me upset too, right? Because these bureaucrats are shielded behind the golden gates of government, right? It's really a tale of two Canadas, right? Tons of private sector pain over the last handful of years, while there's been so much financial gain within government, right? It's really the story of the makers versus the takers, the taxpayers versus the tax consumers, right? And it's not just the compensation, the pay, it's also just the size of the federal bureaucracy, where today you're now paying for 99,000 more federal paper pushers than you were back in 2016. Like, no wonder the cost of the bureaucracy has gone up 77% since 2016.